All right, everybody, welcome to season 2 of the Powering Real Estate podcast. We've changed things up a bit here. We're going video, we're going season 2, and we're going to talk all about operations and strategy for real estate. My name is Lee Adkins. I am joined by my lovely co host, Chris McDonough. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, I'm excited to be here. It's going to be fun.
Welcome to Powering Real Estate. Join me, Lee Adkins, and Chris McDonough as we explore what it takes to run a great real estate business and how to have a solid strategy, great tactics, and a great plan for your real estate company. So today's topic is strategies to help your team improve their listing conversion rate. So we're going to be really focused in on that. And some strategies to help you do that. So, Chris, before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself? I'll say a quick word after that, and we'll dive right in.
Perfect. I am the COO of Amplified Solutions, and I came to Amplified Solutions after close to a decade of real estate experience. I was the broker in charge and vice president of partnerships of a firm where, at its height, we had 225 agents with 9 offices across 2 states. So I love to share my experience and the things I've learned to do, and more importantly, the things I've learned not to do over the years.
Almost always more about what not to do than what to do, I think.
It really is, isn't it? It's invaluable experience.
Definitely. And be sure to check in the description or show notes. We'll leave links to things we reference or ways to connect with us. But just make sure you check that. We'll dive straight in. My name is Lee Adkins. I'm the Chief Learning Officer at Amplified Solutions. I too have a deep background in real estate, worn all the hats, been a solo agent, been a member of a team, run operations, brokerage partner, all that good stuff. So all that to say, now we focus really on kind of the strategy, operations, and technology piece. But I think it's important to note that you and I have both done this, Chris. Like, we have operated real estate companies at a pretty high level that have been pretty successful. And now we choose just to focus on consulting with other teams and getting their stuff together.
Yes, it's so rewarding.
It really is.
I love it. I love what we do.
So diving into strategies to help your team improve their listing conversion rate, it's interesting how much nuance there is to this. Like, we've got really good notes. I'm excited to dig into some really specific details, but just being congruent. Something we did with our team is we had people had to be certified to be able to list. That means they had to know certain things and do certain things to be able to go out and list your property. So I don't know if you want to share anything about your background with this, Chris, and then we'll dive straight into helping people out.
Absolutely. I had the same experience. You had to be certified to list. So when I started with that particular firm as an agent, a top producing agent, mind you, I'm just kidding. Not really, I was. But there were probably 50 agents, and only a couple of them could list houses. It was this very exclusive, everyone was a buyer agent sort of atmosphere. And as we grew and evolved, we found that what really helped was to build an army of listing agents. Everyone, even if you didn't want to ever list a house, it helped improve the entire company for people to understand the listing side of the business at a high level. So when I came in, I was an agent, and my husband started in the business before I did. And he did not love working with buyers. He is, we probably need to have him on to talk about listings, actually. But, he's one of the best listing agents I've ever met. And working in a small office with him and hearing the things he looked for, the way he viewed a contract, the way he counseled his clients. We never really had the opportunity to, be on the other side of a file. Like, we represented the same people where he helped them list and I helped them buy. But that experience skyrocketed my performance at a buyer's agent. So, one of the first things, and this is sort of an overall tip, is open up those doors. Have an opportunity for people to learn more about listings, because even if you don't you do want to maintain that uh, mentality of, oh, only these few people can list, it helps everyone up their game because they know how to write a contract, because you're not only writing a contract to appeal to a seller, you need that's going to be filtered through the brain of the listing agent. So knowing how to write things where the listing agent's going to go, all right, I like this one. They're going to review that contract with their clients, or the offer with their clients, and you're going to be at a much bigger advantage. And so that's something that we found. And I don't have the exact numbers because it's been a while, but over 100 listing agents, to go from 5 or 6 people only to 100 people within the company can do this. And this happened over 8 years. But that really changed the game, and it really helped to get a lot of signs in the ground. And the more signs you have in the ground, for every sign you have in the ground, you're going to bring in like 2.5 times the buyer leads. So it really helps to multiply the abundance of the leads and the marketing
Yeah,
that you have.
absolutely. And to be fair, to do anything at scale, you need some sort of plan or certification, or here's your this, here's your that. I know for us, like, we had dedicated listing packets that were pre-prepared for people who, once they were certified, I was like, great, here's 5 packets, put them in the back of your car. We're going to go over some of this in the session, but just having a process for all of that is really important. So diving into the details, Chris, what's the first thing, or one of the first ways that people can start to kind of better educate or maybe start a certification type of process with their company?
Exactly. So if you're not ready to teach a listing certification class, the first thing you should do is add a listing meeting. So this is going to be outside of your sales meeting, outside of your one-on-one. This is going to be time dedicated solely to listings. So your best cadence is probably going to be monthly. This isn't something you're going to want to hit weekly. And the things that you want to cover at these meetings are going to be your existing listings. What's working? What's not working? What challenges are you facing? And I want to back up just a hair. This needs to be a very collaborative meeting. This doesn't need to be what some people would refer to as a sit and get. This needs to be a very interactive, come up here and talk to me about things type of meeting, because that's going to help every single person. So talk about your existing listings. Talk about what's working, what's challenging you. Talk about existing market conditions, the current market conditions. What's changed? What's different now? What's different from a week or a month ago? Brainstorm on ways to update pricing. That's always a challenge. Getting your sellers to understand why you need to update pricing and when, and how it benefits them in the marketing of their
Right.
listing.
And not to jump too far ahead, but things like that, also the language you use at the listing appointment is going to affect a lot of those things. And we're going to get to that. But I just wanted to kind of jump in real quick with that as well. Like, all of this really is a should be a cohesive process. And that is going to tee up price changes and difficult conversations and things like that later. If you're just going to the listing appointment with a big price and just trying to win the listing without a real strategy, you're going to hurt when it comes time for a price change, and why aren't we having showings, and why is this all happening?
Yes, exactly. And knowing how to navigate those challenging conversations, the more you talk about those in a more comfortable setting like your listing meeting, the the more tools you're going to give your agents in the toolkit. If they hear Lee had this challenging conversation with his seller and this is the way he handled it, you might not say it verbatim, but you aren't going to freeze when your seller calls and says, hey, we've got a problem, you're going to have at least one option to go back to them with and reassure them and help them solve whatever challenge they're facing. Some other things you want to cover in your meetings are your marketing. What's your current marketing strategy? And what do you say when somebody calls? A lot of, if, especially when you get to be a large firm, you have a marketing department. You're putting up radio ads and billboards and social media. You need to make sure that everyone understands exactly what's in those and give them a solid script of what to say when someone calls. Your MLS listing strategy. This was one of my favorite things that we did. And Mike, I'm going to refer to Mike a lot when we talk about listings because he was our listing
That's her
manager.
husband, by the way. Just
He,
to be clear.
yes, that's my husband. So he liked to call it roast my listing. So at the end of the meeting, if someone had a listing that they didn't get enough action on, they didn't really know, they were stuck, we would play a game called Roast My Listing, and we would pull up the MLS listing. We would look at the description, we'd look at the pricing, we'd look at all the pictures, and we would give here we need to broaden this photo. We should probably crop this photo and make a note. Hey, if the seller could spend $100 and zhuzh up the driveway, or whatever the case may be, giving that agent something to go back to their client with and say, hey, I took this to the group and here are the suggestions that we came up. We think we'll get more action on your listing if we do that. That was an
I
invaluable,
love
even
that.
if your listing is only that,
Yeah.
that's really
I
going to
love
help
that. It's
every.
like, it's almost like an internal broker open, right? You're getting feedback to take to the seller, but it's real, but you can get it in your
Mhm.
meeting. And we did something similar in the sense that, we would go through the new listings at the team meeting, but in the same type of concept of like, you're going to get leads on these listings. So you need to know what they look like. If the listing agent would kind of say like, oh, this one has a basement and a fenced yard and it's, really nice. Like those are things you could find in the MLS, but the person who listed it would give the whole team kind of some intel about the property. So again, you can, in that listing appointment, say, hey, we make sure everybody's educated about this property. They're all ready to show it, at any moment. Like all those things are really important.
And it's not only important, but it helps you to get more clients. If they know that it's not just, what is it, the three P's? You put a sign in the yard, you put it on the MLS, and you pray. Like if they know that that's not how your firm operates, word's going to spread, and they're going to say they take a lot of time and care with what they're doing, and that's going to help you to gain more attention and attraction in the market. So that's another thing you can cover in your meetings is what can you do to grow your presence in the market to uh, help you gain more listings and more action. And this really segues us into our next topic, but the ever important piece of role playing. Role playing is not just for buyer agents. It is definitely for everyone in any
Yeah.
situation.
And I think, as things continue to shift, it is super important. It's right. It's good to be ready for those, whether they're objections or questions or whatever they are, explaining the commission, explaining the way the buyer agent commission works now. Like those all need to be things that you need to be really, you and or your team members need to be really confident and clear about. They're looking to you to be the expert. So you need to show up and be the expert. So role playing, we did a fair amount of this with our team as well. Some on like a conference call, Zoom style scenario, and some in person. But just incredibly valuable to just be able to think on your feet. What are you going to say when somebody asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, or it's a really strange question, or anything to that effect? Just having some
Mhm.
of these, and again, it's not scripted. I want to be clear. I think role playing is much different than scripting. You can use your script for role playing, but the whole point of role playing is that someone's going to ask you a question that you are not prepared for, and you need to figure out how to handle that uh, in a great way. Even if it's simply like, you know what, that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that before. Let me get back to you. Um, that's not terrible, but the act of actually actively role playing, it's also great team building just to do it because it's funny. It's hard. It's weird to have a fake conversation with somebody you really know and pretend that they're somebody you've never met before and you're trying to convince them to, do the right thing. One other tip with role playing, it's tempting to kind of intentionally be difficult at first, but remember, like, this is a two-way street. So when if you're not doing this and you just start doing it, like, go easy on people. Don't just try to be no, no. Like, don't try to be super difficult. But again, it's important to not just make it incredibly easy for them. Um, but it really does. And again, if you do it in a team environment, you know, number one, you're not picking on somebody as much. Somebody else can say, "Oh yeah, I had that too." It just feels a little bit better. But I do want to say, like, when you do this, set up the physical environment to be more like you're in an actual house with somebody. Like, don't just sit in your chairs in your office or whatever and do this. Like, it needs to feel like you are really coming in. I probably shouldn't share this. It's going to show my age, but I went through the David Knox training on VHS when I got in the business. And it was great. There were a lot of things like, who sits down first? Would you offer? Do you tour the house first, or do you talk to them first? How do you handle price? Are you going to talk about it early or late? All those things are really important, and there's a lot of resources to help you do this. But role playing, as much as we probably mostly hate it, it serves a really valuable role in your listing training.
Exactly. We went and bought a little cheap bistro table and some chairs and a little tablecloth, and we put it at the front of the room. And as corny as that sounds, to your point earlier, with, if you and I are sitting and both facing the front of the room, that's not a role play. Like, that, you're acting. You have to put on your acting hat. You're doing a performance. And as genuine and authentic as you want to be in your listing presentation, it is a performance. And you need to be skilled at it. So if we sit down at this little bistro table, and if I'm the sales manager and Lee, you say, "Hey, I had this challenge." Great, come up here. You sit down at the bistro table and you say what the objection challenging conversation was. And I say, "Okay, who has an option for Lee?" They come up and sit on the other side of you, and you look them in the eye and you act it out. And then I say, "Does anyone else have a different way to handle this?" So this not only helps the two people sitting at the table, but seeing this in action really cements it in the mind of everyone in attendance at the meeting. And it's really, really helpful to do these uncomfortable things, even if it feels corny. It really helps that experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it can't be beat. It's something that you've got to do. And it just makes great sense. And one of the next things, and we did this a lot with our team as well in a few levels, just ask your top listing agents to mentor people and share what they did and what they've learned. With our team, we had two owners who were still in production. And, one of the things I did is just had one of our agents go with them every time they did a listing appointment. And it was so funny because the one of the owners would always say, like, she just sits there, she doesn't say anything, she doesn't, but she was absorbing all of the brilliant stuff that this lady was giving out in the listing appointments. And then she started to add a little bit to it. And then the owner had so much confidence that she's like, "I don't want that one, give it to her. I don't want that listing, give it to her." And it was great. And then ultimately that agent mentored other agents on the team on the buy and the list side in this particular case. But there's nothing like having somebody who builds up to that and then having them mentor and train other people is
Mhm.
absolutely fantastic. And the cool thing is they take your stuff, and you might be surprised. Sometimes they might make it better. They might,
Yeah, they improve
right.
upon it.
It's really cool. And I've seen it. And like I said, it was almost generational. Like, we had this person do it and then we had her do it for other people. It was really cool to see it both scale and to see, and to see her grow through doing it. It was really, really fantastic.
And this does a few things. So when you are a newer agent at a brokerage, yes, your first goal is to get some money in your bank account. Let me just get one closing. But as you grow and develop, that continues to be your goal, which is to grow and develop. So if you maybe you don't have an organization where you can be a team leader or an assistant manager or what have you, you can become a listing agent. So giving your agents a path of somewhere to go will help your retention rates. And oftentimes those who are really great at listings tend to be pretty good leaders. It takes a lot of leadership skills to get someone through selling a house. So you're also building your bench for leadership. So having them step up and lead part of a meeting, develops their public speaking skills, mentoring others. These are all the skills that you need so that if you do grow your team into something large and you need other leadership, you can tap these people and they're already going to have the experience you need to put them in those types of positions. Another thing that is extra important is to make sure, first of all, that you have a listing presentation.
Yes. Can I tell
If
a quick?
you're
I
rolling,
hate to jump in, but can I tell a quick story about that?
of course.
With our team, I got so much pushback on this. People were like, "We don't need it. We know what we're talking about." Like, I'm not going to pull up this stupid little book and flip through it. Like, that's not how I operate. And I'm like, right, but you were there to show them you have a plan to market and sell their house. So showing up with a plan, it's not for you to read it to them. The idea is that you are demonstrating that you have got a plan to do this, even if you never open it. But it feels to me a
Mhm.
little silly to go to somebody's house and be like, I have a plan. And they go, where is it? And you're like, it's in my head. So have a physical listing presentation. I get all the arguments for, I don't need it. I've done this 1,000 times. I'm not going to, whatever. You're there to show them you have a plan. So show up with some stuff that shows that you actually have a plan.
And it's a new world. People are expecting social media marketing and other forms of marketing. And if the only card you have left to play is, I've been doing this for 20 years, you're out of cards, man. Like, you need to show them your aptitude because everyone has the internet at their disposal. And it's telling you, don't hire a friend, hire a professional. So, whether you're showing up their house to sell them solar panels or a vacuum cleaner or your services as a real estate agent, you're going to need some type of literature to go with that. So, once you develop your listing presentation, you need to review it at least annually. So, gather your group together and talk about each page. How do we make this more clear? Is there anything we need to remove? How do we update this to reflect today's market conditions? If we have developed additional tools and technology and marketing, whatever. How do you say we're not going to ever miss a call on your listing? So reviewing this regularly to make sure it's up to date is really
Yeah, I
helpful.
think I
Um,
want to lean into the technology part too. This is something I added to ours many, many years ago. Just the idea that we've got these systems so that, yeah, if I'm on vacation or I'm on an airplane and somebody calls about your listing, like it's not just going to go into space. Like it actually rings to the team. Somebody's going to answer
mhm.
every call or at least call back every person that called. I think, again, this is underdone. We spend a lot of time setting up all this great technology and we don't have to come at them with name brands and like, oh, I have Follow Up Boss and Ylopo, but like just this idea that we've got a system for everybody inquires on your house is going to get followed up. It can be
Right.
that simple, but I think again, enough people don't just say that, and that really could be a big differentiator because again, your competition is probably focused on giving them a big price so they'll sign without a bunch of details. And you come in and say, look, this is how we do it. We're going to do an open house the first weekend. We're going to do coming soon. We're going to do an open house the first weekend. We've got a tool to capture everybody that ever calls on the sign or online or on social. Like you can, unfortunately, the bar is still relatively low on this. So if you've got, again, a decent plan coming in, that really is going to differentiate you.
And show, and we're not going to get to, we could probably do an entire session on what to include in your listing presentation. But since you mentioned it, pull up, whether you're a Follow Up Boss user or whatever, pull up your database, have a reverse search prepared to show them, I've already got buyers, I've already had people interested in your house or something very similar to it. That's very powerful to use during your listing presentation.
Absolutely.
But we're not going to get in that. Another thing to help you increase your conversion rate of your listings is to make sure, and I touched on this a tad earlier, making sure your team understands your marketing. Everywhere across the country, it has a guaranteed sold program. I'll buy it if it doesn't sell, or use my moving truck if you list with me. Those are all really great marketing, attention grabbing marketing pieces. But if someone calls on that radio ad or that billboard and says, "Great, tell me about your guaranteed sold program," and the person who answered the phone doesn't know what to say, you've lost that lead. If I call Lee and I say, "Hey, Lee, you said I could use your moving truck if I list with you. What does that mean? How long do I have the truck for? Do you drop it off at my house?" And you're just stammering, you've lost that lead. So your marketing doesn't work if your agents don't know how to respond to it and how to talk about it. So make sure whatever you put out into the community, you're also giving copies to all of your agents, not just your listing agents, anyone who could potentially come into contact with it, so they know exactly how to handle it and how to take care and convert that person on the end of the phone. So that's where you want to give them maybe not a hard script to follow, but a few different options of things to say and how to get them to the next step, which would be to book an appointment.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so important. That congruency of message and everybody understanding. It's so, so important. Even if it's a cursory, even if it's a, hey, yeah, we do that for everybody. There's a 5 day, maximum and this, that, and the other. Let me get you some more details. Fine. But they should at least understand the core offering. Yeah, because to that point, Chris, that's such a great point. So, and then another way to do this is it's got, I say this a lot. Everybody wants to set it and forget it, but it doesn't work that way. This is all iterative. Markets change, technology changes, all these things change. So it's super important to have ongoing listing training. And even similar to what you said before, Chris, just having that in a meeting where somebody can say, like, I encountered this, what would you do? Or I've never seen this before. We did this, and or I had an open house and there were 50 people, like whatever those things are, just really incredibly important. And back to the kind of certification thing, if you choose to do that, this can be done in a setting where the other agents can hear. This could be done in a team meeting in some
Mhm.
sense, to that where your potential future listing agents can hear some of these things, because the goal is to get everybody ultimately certified to list or able to list. It's just something you want to do systematically instead of just saying, okay, great, we're just going to give listing leads to everybody and hope it works. Um,
Right.
but yeah, allowing those, that have started listing, to continue to learn, because it really is a process. It does take years and years to get good at it, but it takes years and years of doing the right things to get good at it. So that reiterative training uh, is just so important. I think, probably at least twice a year, maybe once a year if you're like really feeling good about your system. But, I think every 6 months or so. And I think also just having a basic written process, a syllabus, if you will, or SOP, whatever the term you want to use for it is, but just a kind of a core, this is what we do. Like, we had a client a long time ago, and I really loved this. I wish I could say it was my idea, but they put in listings on Thursdays. It was great. They weren't running all week. Oh, we're gonna put a listing, but they teed that up in from the appointment throughout the entire thing, and it just felt like they had a system. Great. We're gonna go live Thursday. It's gonna be coming soon until Saturday, and then Sunday we're gonna do an open house. Like, you sound like a professional instead of a, oh my goodness, let me get the guy here so we can get the picture so we can get it in the MLS so we can get going. Like, that's not as professional. It might be exciting, and maybe what the homeowner thinks they want. Doing some prior legwork and having a plan, again, is always going to pay dividends. Chris, do you have anything to add to the ongoing listing training stuff?
Yeah, I went to our listing training class, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 times. And I learned that I was the broker in charge and I learned something every
Right.
time. Our agents would take it, you know what? I haven't taken this class in a while. I'm going to take it again. If I sit through a 2-day class, I'm an excellent note taker, you guys, and I'm not going to retain everything that I learned. So, just like Lee said, that reiterative option, give them the option to retake the class if it's been a while, or even if they immediately took it and they wanted to take it again, it's only going to help them to develop their skill set and take care of your mutual clients at a higher level. So I'm a big fan of the listing class. In part of your listing class, or if you want to do this separately, you need to make sure that your team understands market statistics and how to run a true full CMA. So when you nail your listing appointment, that's one thing. But if your agents don't understand the market, they don't understand how to properly price a house, they're going to fumble the ball after they get the paperwork signed. So make sure you're concentrating on this during your listing meetings, your training sessions, your classes, your certification course, however far along you've developed this, so that your agents are really, really competent and confident so that you can serve your clients at a really high level. Because you'd really be surprised. People think, oh, I'm just gonna run a couple of comps. It's very different. It's very different.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it really is important to get that down. I think we even had some outside training. We had some people come in from some of the platforms. This was before Cloud CMA was a broker benefit. We had someone from Cloud CMA come in and like run down. You can do this. You can tweak this. You can add more things. Again, this was like 15 years ago. So, you know,
Yeah. But even so, that outside voice, that speaks back to our earlier point about having your more experienced agents lead part of the meeting, stand up and share their experience, because they get tone deaf to you. It becomes the Peanuts teacher in the background. And hearing things from a different point of view, a different voice, is going to help them retain the information a lot better. So I love that idea of having someone come in, even if it's to reteach. I mean, our clients say this all the time. I've told them that a million times. Well, you laid the groundwork for us to come in and really get them to take action.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, that kind of goes back to both the iterative process and the fact that it takes people a minute to get these things down. And kind of back to the role playing thing a little bit, there's no other way to do it than to do it. You can imagine a conversation all day long, but until you're sitting in front of somebody. So the next point is, practice having these difficult conversations with sellers. Um, you know, in a role playing environment, and also obviously in the real world. I'll stick with the CMA thing for a minute. Like difficult conversations about price. Like, hey, I know you love this house and you've been here forever and you spent 50 grand to put a pool in, but like you ain't getting 50 grand back for that pool. Like, I hope you enjoyed it. But I think things like that, one of the things we even had in our listing presentation, and I just found this on Google, you can go find it yourself, I'm sure. There was a really cool like image on chasing the market, and it really
Mhm.
explained that like if you list over price, like you're now chasing the market. But again, teeing that up in the listing presentation makes it a lot easier to have the conversation when it happens. Something else people do, I won't get into too many tactical real estate license things, but some people will build it into the listing appointment or the listing agreement. Like if after 3 months we haven't, or 3 weeks we haven't had an offer, or we've only had fewer than 10 showings, then we're going to reduce the price $10,000. So there are things you can do to tee that up in advance. It is terrible to call somebody out of the blue and be like, hey, guess what? We're going to have to, you just lost $10,000, because that's what they hear. It's not what happened,
Right.
but that's what they hear. They just lost $10,000. And who's the bearer? Who's the messenger? It's you. So, number one, teeing those up in advance. And then back to Chris's point about the CMA, just getting the price right in the first place. There used to be a day where we just take a listing and we get leads. That'd be great. That is not, I would not recommend that. Even if you're watching this video 5 years after we film it, I would imagine that part is not going to change. But yeah, role playing those conversations. And this is where you can maybe be a little more difficult, right? You really could push back. Well, we paid this much for it. Like all those kind of standard, well, we put granite,
I just put in bamboo
we put
floors.
granite in the kitchen. Like, okay, great. Because we couldn't even sell it with the Formica that you had before. So you're not making $5,000 by putting that granite in. You're just maybe going to sell your house. So
And I think the thing we're not saying here is we all as licensees say I'm a real estate expert. But are you really an expert? What does it mean to be an expert in anything? Because it's not passing your real estate test. That doesn't make you an expert. You know, all of these things that we're suggesting for you to try or implement, or even if you only do one of them, uh, ensuring that you are cultivating a team of true experts, that's going to set you apart from the competition in a billion different ways. Because unfortunately, with the tools and technology that we have, the AI, the incoming leads, a lot of agents and agencies that I have seen are taking this very turn and burn on to the next, you know, and we're forgetting the soft skills, we're forgetting the expertise that's required, and something, I'm an inactive broker at charge, but you have a license, and that is serious. You have an obligation to the public. And if this is not these are not things that you're taking seriously, you don't deserve a license. Like, you need to make sure that your people are taking that license seriously. And if they say they're a real estate expert, they have the tools and the talent and the knowledge to really back that up.
yeah,
And I really want to make sure that we are driving that home, because there's a lot of people who are, you know, just going through the
right.
motions and they're getting lucky in a hot market. But that's you know, we don't ever want to spread fear, but with the way things are changing, you need to take a step forward
Yeah,
there.
no, I think that is super important. And honestly, and obviously, if you are a brokerage, you've got some liability on that. And if you're a team, you know, the liability is maybe more your reputation or your name or whatnot. But very important. And just to close the loop on that too, you know, these difficult conversations, you know, the goal is not to be confrontational. The goal is that the seller feels, to Chris's point, that you are an expert and you know what you're talking about, and that you're looking out for their best interest. They're educated about it. You know, they feel supported. They understand, you know, we're on the same team here, but, you know, not
Mm-hmm.
everybody can be the pitcher or the quarterback or whatever. So, like, developing that rapport with them is super important. And it's going to make those conversations easier when you need to have them. I mean, they're never easy, but it's the right thing to do. And to Chris's point, like, just having a real estate license doesn't qualify you to have that conversation. Having practice at it and having done it and having done it well is really the only thing that qualifies you for that. So,
I
all right, I
agree.
think we got one more point, Chris. You wanna take this one?
Yes. So this kind of goes hand in hand with your listing presentations. We made the mistake early on of having our like a stack of listing presentations in a storage closet, and they were disappearing like M&Ms. You know, they were just flying out the door, and we were like, we printed off
Where are all the listings?
200 listing presentations. Where's all the listings? Nobody could tell us. And I was like, are you wallpapering your bathroom with these? Where are all the listing presentations going? So we created in our offices, you had to go into the manager's office and sign out a listing presentation. So this is where I'm going. This is the date, the neighborhood, just a simple line of what it is. And that way, whoever, soup team lead, whoever, could see where the listing presentations were going. And they could also do several things. First, they could follow up on them. Hey, how did your listing presentation go? How did your appointment go? It's never, ever fun to slink in and go, I didn't get the list. I didn't get the listing. But if you're tracking these, you're going to create opportunities for conversations, coaching that you won't get otherwise. So really keep track of where your agents are going. And also with that sheet, if you went in to sign it out and I saw that Lee had an appointment, I'm going to pick up my presentation, and I see that Lee had an appointment last week in the same neighborhood. Guess who I'm calling on my way out the door? Hey man, how'd it go? What'd they say? What happened? How'd you price? Let's talk about that. So it creates a collaborative experience because you're a real estate agent and you're responsible for your own finances and your own goals and your own mini business inside of a larger business. But the more you can create these opportunities for people to work together and solve problems together, it not only helps you convert your listing appointments into closings, but it helps you serve your community at a higher level. So don't keep your appointments a
I
secret.
wanted,
And you also won't waste money on your listing
yeah,
presentations because if you're doing it right, they're expensive to print. So
yeah, I want to lean a little bit into
tell
something
me the
else you
bottom
said too.
line
That's
too.
another ancillary kind of internal benefit, similar to a lot of things we talked about. That also builds great culture when you have that, and people know and understand that, and they know they can call somebody that had an appointment in that neighborhood earlier that week and ask great questions. Like that is incredibly valuable. And so I think, I know I've said this a lot, but I believe it really deeply. If you do all these things well, it's doing all the things. It's generating revenue, it's creating culture, it's training, it's doing all these things. And I know that's a difficult place to get. But Chris, for you and I, people who have done this in a very systematic, operational type of way, um, it's amazing. Again, it takes time, but time of doing the right things. It's amazing the dividends that it pays uh, in every way. And so, all these things, bear doing. Yes, it takes work. Yes, it's hard. Yes, you're gonna have to figure out some stuff and come up with some stuff. But it's all really, it's part of being an excellent, expert, professional real estate agent or team or brokerage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's it. That's the list.
Cool.
I love
Well,
it.
I hope this is very helpful for people. I know we covered a lot in a small topic. It's also why this is recorded. You can go back. There's also links below or attached to this video that'll get you to some other relevant resources to learn more or connect with us.
Great. Well, before we go, I want to take 1 minute to share with you what we do at Amplified Solutions. Our clients come to us to either set up or improve their systems within their Follow Up Boss accounts. We help their agents understand what they need to be doing and how to do it. And we monitor the leads within their database and how they're worked. So we overhaul your system with our proven method. We use this with our clients all across North America. We train your team and we provide you with written handbooks, guides, and SOPs. Then we hook you up with an account manager who oversees the leads within your account and nudges your agents to keep data integrity high and convert more of your leads into transactions. And they provide you with fantastic reporting of exactly what's going on in your account and things you can do, those fine tuning, since we've done all the heavy lifting initially to help you convert at a higher level. So, to find out more about how we can help you and your team, you can visit our website. We're at amplifiedsolutions.com. As Lee said, we're going to have links for you here, there, and everywhere. You can complete a free, no strings attached assessment to get an in depth view of your account and what we can do for you. Or you can just book a call and we can talk about what your challenges are and how we can help you. Thanks for being here today.